Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Visordown. My name is Toad, and today we are coming to you from the beautiful and splendid Himalayas in northern India. And we are here for, appropriately, the launch of the new Royal Enfield Himalayan. I know it looks quite similar to the previous generation Himalayan, but once you dig a little bit deeper, there is loads and loads of new stuff. In fact, pretty much everything is all new. The suspension, the frame, the new Sherpa 450 engine is all new, liquid cooled as well, which is a massive deal for Royal Enfield. So Royal Enfield have really pushed the boat out on this one. This is one of the most humbling and amazingly beautiful places that I've ever been lucky enough to ride a motorcycle. We've only just really got here. We've had a little taster session of riding off-road on the new Himalayan just to get acquainted with it. We've had a short road ride to get here, but we've got 2 days full riding up here in the mountains above 10,000 feet. I cannot wait, and I cannot wait to get to grips with this lovely little motorcycle. So I'm going to get kitted up, I'm going to go for a bit more off-road riding, then hit the road, and then once the launch is wrapped up, I will be back with you to tell you what I think. So there we have it, folks. We are back at the launch hotel here in Manali, and the curtain has closed on, without a doubt, the most memorable two-wheeled experience that I've ever had in my life. It's thanks in part to the bike, but it's also thanks to the stunning Himalayas, which have really blown me away, taken my breath away over the last couple of days of riding. It's been really, really special. I can't really talk about the Himalayas too much though, because we are here to review the bike, the new Himalayan 450. And as I said earlier, this is a bike that has massively changed from the first generation machine, which was released in 2017 or 2018. Everything is new, the frame, the engine, the suspension, the wheels. We've got a 21-inch front and a 17-inch rear. So it is a proper lightweight, easy to ride and manageable adventure bikes. So I'm going to start off by talking about the engine, because this new Sherpa 450, it is a big news story for Royal Enfield. I mean, they don't do water-cooled engines. This is their first one, and they have done a really good job with it. It's got more power, so it's putting out 40 horsepower. It's got more torque, but more importantly, 90% of the engine's torque is available through pretty much all of the rev range of the bike, from 3,000 RPM right the way up. We are at 10,000 meters here though. We are quite a long way up, and I do feel that the high altitude stifled the power and the torque of the bike quite a bit, so I'm excited to get it back into the UK. It doesn't feel like a 40 horsepower bike at the minute. At this altitude it feels like it's got about 32 to 33 brake horsepower. One thing I will say is that Royal Enfield have given it more power, they've given it more torque, but they haven't changed that usability that the Himalayan was so famous for. That's what people loved about it, was just how you could just get on it and ride it, and it was just easy to ride. New riders could get on it and ride off-road for the first time if they want. Experienced riders could also take it off-road and enjoy the single-cylinder air-cooled motor of the old one. That is all still the same with this one. It may have more power, but don't lead you into thinking that this is some arm-wrenching 450 enduro bike. It is very much not. Another change for this model is the ride-by-wire throttle. So the previous bike had a cable-operated one, and this is a ride-by-wire system. And again, that is a first for Royal Enfield. They've knocked it out of the park on that front, because the throttle connection is really, really good. And another bonus of the fly-by-wire throttle is that it introduces riding modes to the Himalayan. So you've got an eco mode and you've got a performance mode. The performance mode, I think, is called performance. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek because it's not anything special, but it gives you the full power. And then if you wanted to, you can put it into the eco mode. And I was talking to Royal Enfield's engineers, and they told me that actually the eco mode basically reduces the power and the torque to almost exactly the same level as the previous generation Himalayan. So if you wanted to go and try this bike out and just test it out with the eco mode on, you're going to get a very, very similar riding experience to the previous generation machine. We've got an all-new TFT as well, which is a big step. It's got the Tripper turn-by-turn navigation. It's really clear, really easy to read. There's no fluff with it, so there's no startup graphics and all sorts of smoke drifting across the screen. It just comes up with the Himalayan branding, and you're straight into the TFT. You've got different menus that you can go through, so you can change the information that you've got on there. You can switch it from dark to light modes. All very simple, very easy to use and very, very user friendly, which is great on a bike like this. Suspension as well, another new feature of this bike. We've got USD forks from Showa. They're separate function forks, and there is no adjustability at the front. You do get 7-step preload adjustability at the rear. I mean, some people will want adjustability from the suspension on a bike like this. For me and the way I was riding, it wasn't an issue. There were some people at the launch too, especially when we got off-road, who are much bigger than I am, who were saying that it was a little bit undersprung and underdamped and they wanted to be able to wind that up. It hasn't got it, and I think it is a price point thing. I think Royal Enfield they're pitching this to be a cost-effective commuter, come adventure bike, come green laning tool, whatever you really want it to be. And for it to really stand out in that class, it's got to be competitive. That is a bit of a sticking point for me, because we don't actually know the price of this bike yet, and we're not going to find it out for quite some time. So trying to benchmark it against the competition is difficult, because if this is a £6,000 or a £5,800 bike, it's bloody good value. That changes if it's £7,000 or £7,500. But stay tuned, we'll have a full document going out covering all of the price and the full specs of it when that information is released. So the braking system, we've got bi-brake calipers front and rear on this one. We've got a 320mm disc at the front, and it's a 2-piston caliper, not a 4-piston item. I was a little bit dubious about the performance of the brake before I actually rode it, but having ridden it, it's actually pretty damn good. There is a lot of power in the front brake, and the lever feel is really nice, so you can be quite progressive with it on the road. There was a couple of occasions when we were riding off-road when I went to get the front brake and get on the front brake, and it just started to lock and tuck the front, so it might be something that you just want to watch out for if you are going to be taking your Himalayan on some sandy, loose surfaces. Rear brake as well, we've got another bi-brake single piston sliding caliper. Bikes for the Indian market generally set up, they have a really, really strong back brake. It's not a woolly back brake where you don't even know that you're braking and your foot's resting on the lever. It's super, super sharp, and that is because Indian riders are always using their back brake and very rarely actually touch the front brake. I actually really like the sharp rear brake. It means that you can sort of get the back end of the bike sliding around, and it also meant that once you got off-road, if you needed to change direction quickly, you could do that really, really easily with that rear brake. You've got ABS on this. It's only a 2-channel system, so there's no IMU control. It is very simple, and you can switch off the ABS to the rear. You can't do that with the front, but it's not overly intrusive for the kind of riding that most people are going to be doing on a bike like this. I've got to talk about these tyres, because the last time that I rode on a bike that had got Seat hoops on it, it was the Hunter 350 in Bangkok, and the tyres were a big sticking point for me. They didn't seem to have much grip in the dry, and even less when it rained, and they weren't very good at all. They were off-the-shelf tyres. They weren't specially developed for that motorbike. This bike has got co-branded, co-developed tyres that Royal Enfield have basically worked with Seat to develop them. And I was quite impressed with them, actually. On the road, in the dry, they're really good. We didn't get any rain, so we couldn't test out the wet weather performance of the tyres, but overall, they're pretty good on the road. When we got off-road, I actually found them to be quite good. In dry, loose, gravelly, sandy surfaces, they're actually pretty good. It's when it got a bit wet and a bit slushy and there was some snow that had started to melt, that's when the tread blocks started to get blocked up with mud and they were starting to lose grip then. But normally on a bike like this, if the tyres are crap, I would say the first thing that you're going to do when you ride out of a dealership is you're going to swap them out. But on these, I reckon you could probably manage it, at least in the summer, if you were going to be doing some off-roading and some touring. I'll talk about the comfort very quickly. This bike is super accessible. The seat is low, the bars are a nice reach, they're quite wide, the foot pegs are really set quite low, so there's plenty of room for bigger riders. The seat's 3-position adjustable. There's all different seats you can get, including an enduro seat. And I've got to say that overall, the comfort of it is very, very good. The seat's comfortable. I haven't got any aches or pains or niggles or anything after 2 days of riding up here in the Himalayas. The only thing that is a real fly in the ointment of the comfort is the bars do get a little bit buzzy at speed, and you do get a bit of that coming through the foot pegs if you've taken out the rubber inserts, as I did for the riding off-road. Another problem with those buzzy bars is that they did tend to make my mirrors flop down so that you couldn't see what was going on behind. And I think I must have adjusted the mirrors about 5,000 times during this press launch. This bike has got these natty little CNC ones fitted to it as an aftermarket option. They will perform much better because they're much more solid. It's also got the taller touring screen as well, which if you are going to be riding, looking at doing some longer trips or commuting through winter, this right here is a must buy for your Himalayan. So overall, I think They've actually done pretty well with this. The on-road performance, the on-road handling of it is very, very surprising. I kind of knew that it was going to be quite good off-road. I knew it wasn't going to be difficult to ride. It's not going to be an intimidating bike, and it is not in any way, shape or form. You do feel like if you're a new rider who's just looking to dip their toe in off-roading or green laning or whatever for the first time, this is an ideal candidate. It's light, agile, easy to ride. If you're a more experienced rider as well, surprisingly, this bike actually gets better the faster you go off-road. It sort of comes to it, and before you know it, you'll be belting along at sort of 50 or 60 miles an hour on a dirt track and having an absolute ball. That is a real good feature and one of the standout features of the bike, I think. I do need to also say that a big high five needs to go out to the Himalayas and the people that live around here in Manali. I mean, this place was decimated by floods earlier on this year. We've seen entire buses and coaches that have been squashed at the bottom of a hill like a Coca-Cola can, and that is just from the weight of the water and the rocks that have just flown down the valley when it flooded. And all the people that you see out on the streets, and remember, entire villages were washed away without a trace during that flood. All the people here are so friendly, so good-natured, and they just go about everything they do with a smile on their face, and it's really, really good to see, and I'm glad we got to come here to experience this bike in its native habitat. Anyway, folks, I've been Toad Hancox for Visordown.com. I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you have, please drop a like, hit follow, so you can stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And for all the latest news, reviews, and motorcycle features, get yourself over to Visordown.com. Thank you.